Okay, it just turned 4 p.m. so we can start our meeting. I would like to call the meeting to order for Wednesday, July 10th, 2024. It is now 4 p.m. And we will start off with a salute to the flag. Trinity, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Megan, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Alpine?
Here.
Commissioner Burris?
Here.
Commissioner Koskett?
Here.
Commissioner Landon?
Here.
Commissioner Rohan?
Here.
Commissioner Bass, he's on Zoom. Commissioner Friedman is absent. Commissioner Holmes? Here. Commissioner Nisley? Here. Commissioner Spriggs? Here. Chair Gustafson?
Here. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 3 on our agenda, changes and approval of the agenda. Staff, do you have any changes?
No changes from staff, Chair.
Any commissioners have any changes? Not seeing any, so we'll deem the agenda approved. I don't need a motion on this, do I? No objections. So we'll move on to public comment. Is there anyone in the room who is here to address us on an item not on the agenda? And we can provide you 3 minutes. We are prohibited from taking any action, but we're happy to hear your comments. I don't see anybody jumping to the mic here in the room. Is there anybody online?
I see that, Chair.
Okay, then we'll move on to item 5 on our agenda, which is the presentation from AP Triton LLC covering the highlights from the Fire District Master Plan to the South Placer Fire Protection District.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to start the presentation a little bit just so I can give a brief background and also talk a little bit about what we're seeing at the staff level on the South Placer side. So we started a municipal service review for all of the Western fire agencies, all the agencies, the cities, the special districts, the county that provide fire and EMS services for the western part of Placer County. And as part of that review process, South Placer had a reorganization, a consolidation, 2017. And they informed us that they were having some difficulties as a result of that consolidation. And so staff began looking at what can we do to help, and so what we included as part of the service review was the master plan. So this is one chapter of the service review, and it is not for the commission to adopt. It's simply information for us to use as part of our service review, as part of our sphere of influence, and finally any boundary changes and governance changes. So I just want to start really quickly. So what happened in 2017 was a consolidation that was approved by LAFCO of the South Placer Fire District, which is the Green Bay area. And then the gold area, or the yellow, is the Loomis area. And you'll notice a few things just right off the bat with this map. 2 stations are closed, right? We've got the city of Loomis, or the town of Loomis, which is an incorporated city. They're being served by mostly the South Placer Fire District, but you'll see in the most upper part, right before like the Rockland sphere of influence, you'll see that their city is split. And then it's just, you'll see islands, you see areas that are not contiguous to their boundary. And so that's like right off the bat, which is what screams out at you. So then we start digging into, so LAFCO looks at services and the financial implications of those services. That's what we do. So right off the bat, we look at the yellow again, which is the Loomis area, and then the green. the services are unequal. That you have ambulance services in Granite Bay, but not in Loomis. When you start looking at the financial implications of what was not transferred over, like the services, the financial part wasn't either. So you have the ad valorem, which is the 1% assessed value of all the properties. In Loomis, they're collecting 2% of the 1%. In Granite Bay, 12 to 14%. Special tax, you see, and the benefit assessment, there's COLAs in Loomis, it's a much higher rate. In Granite Bay, it's a fixed $70. So I look at this, and I want to compare and contrast, because next month we are going to be receiving the, and your commission will be considering the North Tahoe Meeks Bay. And this situation is exactly the same as what we're doing for those two agencies. Yesterday at the Board of Supervisors, they approved the tax sharing agreement. And that agreement required that the Meeks Bay side increase the TRA from the 2% that you see in Loomis to 11%, because that's what is being received by the North Tahoe Fire District. The special assessment, the benefit assessment, we are extending to Meeks Bay, as well as ambulance service. So those are the things that would normally happen in a reorganization, and that did not happen here. So when we look at the disparity with ambulance service, and this is the things, this is a little bit different than what's in the master plan, because what I'm showing you is how I see it as LAFCO staff. And so what you're seeing is that the private company, which is, or private agency, AMR, which provides services in their district boundary, they're receiving so much more help from the district than what they are providing on the other side. Just the disparity, you can see, it seems like as the years go on, it gets more and more, it gets worse and worse. So when we start looking at this is I apologize for the quality, but this is a screenshot of what's on the Placer County tax roll. So it's just on their website, it's available to the public. And so I highlighted some areas there for you. If you look at the yellow area, with the yellow highlights, what that represents is that Loomis is being served by 2 fire districts, right? You see Penryn, and then you see South Placer. The green, it's you have 2 fire districts serving that TRA. Now you may recall that one TRA could be 1 APN, or it could be hundreds, thousands of APN. So for that one TRA, we have 2 special districts serving it. For the blue, what that represents is the city of Rockland, which has its own fire department. Within their city limits, it's also within the jurisdictional boundary of the South Placer. And then there's Roseville, which is in pink. Again, within the city of Roseville, but it's within South Placer's jurisdictional boundary. So what does that look like? Because I'm starting to peel back the layers. So this is on the Loomis side. I just took kind of like the middle of the 2 areas, if you will. So this is on the Loomis side. You see 3 TRAs that, again, and what that looks like. So we have the Fire Control Fund, which is a county fund that receives services, that receives revenue but does not provide services to that area. You see South Placer and you see Loomis. So what does that look like just for those 3 TRAs in the map? So that there's $25,985 in that area. So this example, as you see up there, it's just limited to those 3 RAs. It changes every single year. This is just 1 year that I'm capturing. So let's move over to the Rockland side. And with this one, it's 1 TRA, but there's 39 affected parcels. So here, it's within the city's jurisdictional boundary, but it's within the city limits, but it's also in South Placer's jurisdictional boundary. And so here's what that looks like. There's actually, let me go back. Back. So there's actually 2 TRAs. That's 004, 030, and then 040, 035. So that one is a road. So what that looks like is the city of Rockland, because it's in their city, they're collecting 98,000. South Placer, because it's in their jurisdictional boundary, they're collecting 93. But again, Rockland has a city fire department that provides services to their city. So, as I mentioned earlier, there is no action before you, but I wanted you to start looking at these issues as we do consolidations, reorganizations, and why it is so important for us to do the service review and the fiscal impact analysis. And because they have, negative consequences. So what are our next steps? We're waiting for the service review. It'll be out in a month or two. And then we need to make some sphere of influence amendments, not just for the special districts, but also the cities. And then the boundary changes. Again, this is just one agency. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, I'm finding this all over the county. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ken.
Can I ask a quick question? Did that happen when there was an annexation for the city of Rockland? Or did it is that how that occurred?
Yes,
Okay.
and then,
So that it was covered by both?
right, what I was noticing in our archives, in our files, project files, is they would do one action, and it's never one action on LAFCO. It's always a reorganization, multiple actions. So you need to be moving services for multiple agencies and, removing services from another agency. And so they were taking one action as opposed to looking at it, all the layers, right? All the service providers, all the non-service providers. So that's what's happening, and so.
Thanks for the clarification. Any other questions for Michelle? Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just
Oh, no,
wanted to make sure I understood how that happened.
thank you. Okay, Ken, you're on.
Excellent. Good afternoon. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. So thank you to the members of the board, and thank you for Michelle for the background information. It's extremely helpful. My name is Ken Kemna. I'm a senior associate with AP Triton, retired fire chief out of Santa Clara County. I retired back in 2018 from the fire service after about 35 years, and continue to work in the fire service and adjacent in the community. So I just wanted to share that with you so that it gives you a little bit of context into my background. I think it's just important. I'll be working with Chief Doerr as we do the presentation today. I want to be able to give him an opportunity as we share the information, because I think it's important to provide some context. Next slide, please. To differentiate from the municipal service review, this is a master plan. This is focused entirely on the South Placer Fire District. The purpose of the master plan is really to understand the fire district itself. Oftentimes, we will do master plans at the same time that we're doing municipal service reviews and/or feasibility studies, just to make sure that we set the stage. This is a master plan, so this is focused on South Placer Fire District as an agency, and specifically to look forward for that agency and make recommendations for the future of South Placer Fire District. The things we look at is we look at the risks that the community faces today. We also look at the community growth, not only where it is today, but what we anticipate that growth to be. Risk significantly is impacted by the growth of a community. Obviously, population is going to impact risk, so it's something that we pay close attention to. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to recommend steps for to position South Placer Fire District to address that growth. Oftentimes, as communities grow, their public safety needs grow with them. In absence of proper preparation and growth along with the community, it's easy for a public safety agency to fall behind. And that can be really challenging for an agency to make up ground once a community has grown, limiting opportunities for adding new facilities, new stations, and the additional personnel and resources necessary to serve that community. Basically, with the master plan is specifically just to keep South Placer Fire District in pace with the community. Our team of subject matter experts analyzed it. Could you go back to the one slide there? I just want to make sure to do if it's possible. There we go. The AP Triton team is comprised of subject matter experts, fire chiefs, public safety professionals, both currently working in the industry and some recently retired. The vast majority of our team are definite subject matter experts in their area, whether it's fire prevention, community risk analysis, fire prevention, public education and safety. The team is comprised of a number of individuals. Each of us is focused on a very specific area to make sure that you get the attention that you need and the expertise specifically for the subject matter that we're addressing. From the analysis, the team identified factors influencing risk and response performance as identified and looked for opportunities for service delivery improvement. Next slide, please. As you are well aware, this is the South Placer Fire District. It's important for us to identify the service area up front so that we make sure that we're very clear the area that's going to be analyzed. The reason this is important is we're going to draw information and data from the fire district, all provided by the organization and by ancillary and by other agencies in the community. So we want to make sure that we clearly define the area that we're going to be analyzing. So this is nothing unfamiliar to you. Next slide, please. First and foremost, for some reason the slide looks like it's the information moved around, but I can cover it. Revenues are projected to grow by 5% annually, including salary and benefits and other operating expenses. They're going to grow at 7% annually. The forecasted growth factor does create a cash flow deficit beginning, I believe it's in 2025 is that got cut off, but you can see it in the table below. Chief Doerr, I think you had something you wanted to share on this particular slide.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, Mark Doerr, South Placer Fire District Chief. First and foremost, I appreciate LAFCO and staff walking us through this process and really standing up and trying to right some of the wrongs that occurred in 2017. So thank you first for helping us with that. My board president, Director Tracy Randall, is here, and we just wanted to say thank you very much. With that, to this slide specifically, you can see a negative trend where by 2029, we're $2 million in the hole. This master plan was conducted in 2022 with a point in time look at our finances. In that same year, we also made significant changes based on a failed benefit assessment. We went out to the public, we tried to ask for more money. They said no. The district you can see here would fail in very short order if we didn't make changes. So at that point in time, we closed the station, reorganized our finances, put our house in order, making sure, one, that we're providing the service to the community in a fast, responsible manner. And those numbers, if we were to do those today, would look a lot different. For instance, 2021 fiscal year, we were about $600,000 to the negative. 22, negative 90,000. Last year, positive 1.1 million. So we're trending in the right direction due to closing a station, not filling some open FTE position, full-time equivalent positions, and really adjusting and making sure our spending was matching our revenues. So while this slide looks bad, it's from a point in time and not what we're seeing today.
Thank you, Chief. That's really important context. I think it's also really, important to share that one of the things that we pride ourselves on at AP Triton is when we work with organizations, as we begin to put the information together, we draw information from the agency on which we base our analysis. But as we do so, we work with the agency so they can be proactive and begin to make some of the changes to the things that we see that we need to address early on. And Chief Doerr already mentioned this, but I really appreciate the fact that many of the things that we're going to talk about today have already begun. They've begun the process of addressing those things. So thank you. Next slide, please. Community risk assessment and service delivery performance. I would highly encourage the members of the board to review the master plan. This is a very important part of the master plan. It basically gives us a deep dive into the risk that the community faces and the service delivery and performance of the organization addressing that risk. This is important because this is really the best way to evaluate the service delivery that's being provided by your organization to the community and how you're meeting the needs of that community. As this is just a high flight and overview, we simply can't go into the depth of analysis that we would like to, but I would certainly encourage you to read it. I would also encourage you to read it because it's written for anybody to understand. We really pride ourselves on trying to make sure that the information that's provided is not overly complicated and is easy to be digested, so you can make some sense of it and provide good direction for your community. Next slide, please. As again, we start off with the study area. Obviously, we need to look at population density. As we know, population density certainly correlates closely with risk. As we'll see in a moment, it also correlates closely with call volume. As communities continue to grow, obviously some of the areas are going to grow more quickly than others. It's important for us to be mindful of those areas, the population density and the corresponding risk and call volume associated with them. As I said, adding the additional infrastructure once the community has been developed and grown around it can be extremely difficult. So it's really important that we look forward and we prepare for what the population density and growth of our community is going to look like in the future. Next slide, please. In looking at the master plan, as you go through the community risk assessment, you would see several maps of this type speaking to specific hazards, whether it's flood, earthquake. This is the wildfire risk map, but there's a number of others in there as well. They were not included for the sake of brevity, but I wanted to share this with you because I think it's just a good example of the kind of information that we're looking at specific to one type of risk. The other thing here to point out, obviously, is we're looking at wildfire risk. It's relatively easy for us to understand that there's a moderate, high, and a very high risk level associated with the areas that you see here on the map. I think we all know from recent history that the wildfire risk is not isolated just to those areas that are colorized here on the map, but it is an indication of where the risk is highest. Next slide, please.
No, can we hold for a second?
Chief, I'm sorry, go ahead.
To point on this map, if you look, Station 19 is closed, and Station 20 right now is staffed with 2 personnel. And so when you look at where our biggest risk is, this is the area that we have the most vulnerable staffing there. We would love to see 3-person staffing on all of our engine companies. We would love to see all of our stations open. And that's important for the community because the quicker you get there, the faster you can put the fire out, which lessens the damage to the community. Right now, we're struggling with this, and that's a key point in this presentation. Thanks, Ken.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chief. And just for a point of order for you and I think what I'll do is before I say next slide, please, I'll just give you an opportunity to chime in. I apologize for going too fast there. Next slide, please. All right, South Placer Fire District incident volume. Again, this was a snapshot in time where we're looking at the years of 2019 to 2022. Just to sort of set the stage a little bit, the reason we do a snapshot in time is one, we need to encapsulate the time that we are looking at for the purposes of analysis. If we didn't, it would be very difficult for us to provide an articulate statement about the organization. So we look at a very specific snapshot in time. So you'll see a general trend of call volume increasing from 2019 through 2022. We will look at 2020 as there's a little bit of a dip there corresponding to the COVID-19 pandemic, which a lot of us certainly saw within our agencies. But this shows a general trend of call volume increase. Chief, anything you want to add?
No.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. As I said, call density, where you see there are 2 areas of density here, one in the north and one in the south. Again, these correspond very closely to population density as well. Again, this is an important piece of information for us to keep in front of as a fire chief. We look at this information to make sure that one, what we understand about the area that we serve, that we're properly paying attention to the details so that we can make sure that we're properly staffing and equipping the areas most in need and providing that service. This map again closely corresponds to the call volume from the period of 2019 to 2022, and again, those areas most populated. Chief, anything you want to add here?
No.
All right, thank you. Next slide, please. As we look out 20 years, we see there's a general population increase. If we look all the way up to 2040, we see the potential population increase all the way up to almost 40,000 people. As we mentioned earlier, the service demand certainly corresponds to population growth. So by that time, we see a significant growth in call volume as well. So service demand is likely to increase as population increases in your community. Chief Durr, anything?
Nope.
All right, next slide, please. A brief discussion about emergency medical services. Next slide, please. Ambulance responses in the area. Again, this is 2019 to 2022, as we see a general increase in call volume beginning in 2019 all the way up through 2022. And that is in, you'll see it there at the top, that's the South Placer Fire Protection District Ambulance Service Area, closely followed underneath it by the Loomis Ambulance Service Area, and the amount of automatic aid provided. At the bottom of the slide, you'll see the private ambulance service also provided to the area as well. Chief, anything you want to share?
Yeah, and Michelle had a slide earlier that talked about the mutual aid and the automatic aid coming into Loomis and South Placer for the ambulance side. And I think the biggest issue for us as the district is we have a consolidated district that has different service models, right? The town of Loomis doesn't have the benefit of having a ambulance come from the South Placer Fire District. It's coming from a private ambulance provider who, at the end of the day, is about making money. We are here to serve the community, and that's what we do. And one of our big pushes is to try and get our ambulance service, and really all of our services, consistent across the district. And when you look at the aid slide, and it's a little harder to figure out here, but I think the last year that was, or the first year in Michelle's slide is 465 times we're providing service in, and the private ambulance provider is reciprocating 30 times. That's a disparity that I think can be addressed to the benefit of our community. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next slide, please. Annual ambulance patient volume, as I said, as we look at 2019 to 2022, we see a general increase in call volume. Again, there was a significant dip in 2020 as we saw a lot less across the board ambulance service, fewer people calling 911 for ambulance service. Hourly transports by our EMS system, you'll see the typical bell curve that we'll see. The middle part of the day tends to be the highest volume for us, tapering off well into the evening, but that is pretty standard among the industry. Chief, anything you want to share?
No.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. All right, so findings. The fire chief and his administrative staff provide numerous opportunities for internal communication and open dialogue. And I have to share, as a fire chief, it is one of the biggest challenges to running an organization is communicating effectively up and down the chain of command and throughout the organization. There's a lot of information throughout every single day, and to communicate efficiently and effectively is challenging. It is always a subject of great critique and always an area that we are looking for improvement in. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the fire chief and how hard he works to make sure that he is communicating effectively with his organization through any number of mechanisms, both formal and formal. So I definitely want to make sure that I call that out as it was something I looked at specifically. Chief, I'm going to go ahead and run through these, and before we leave the slide, I'll give it over to you. The district is in process of developing a formalized policy and procedures manual. However, standard operating guidelines and SOGs have not yet been completed. The district has a division chief currently providing oversight in EMS logistics and is supported by a staff engineer using a Microsoft Excel database for inventory control measures. The system is fragmented. AMR, as we talked about already, provides ALS response and transportation services to the town of Loomis, whereas South Placer Fire Protection District provides ALS response to the Granite Bay. In 2022, South Placer Fire Protection District provided aid to the town of Loomis 473 times. Many of these are redundant based upon the presentation that we've already had thus far, but I just wanted to share them with you. Chief, anything you want to share?
No, I think you're right. We've covered a lot of this.
We have a question here.
Go ahead.
The question is, where the private agency is used, do you roll as first responders, fire equipment?
Yes, our engine responds with a private ambulance.
Okay. Thank you.
Next slide, please. The South Placer Fire District operates a staffing model with either 2, 3, or 4 personnel per company per staff fire station. As was indicated earlier, call volume did see a minor dip in 2019 that rebounded in 2021. Again, this was seen across the industry, largely due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As you saw from the service area map and the stations that are either closed or non-existent, the center of the district is underserved, and it is difficult for South Placer Fire Protection District personnel to arrive within an actionable amount of time during an emergency. Since 2021, new construction projects in the district have seen an increase over 500%. I think it speaks for itself. Chief, anything you want to add?
Yeah, and I talked about a little bit earlier, the 3-4 personnel versus 2. The gold standard, the recommendation by the National Fire Protection Agency is 4 personnel on scene in 4 minutes or less. There's very few agencies that can afford that. It's just super expensive. What the benchmark here on the West Coast is 3, and that's what we're shooting for. And so we'll, I think, cover a few more things here, but and when you look at 500% increase in construction and the center of the district is uncovered, there's a lot of things that we should have looked at in 2017, but I'm so happy that you're here now listening to this now. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next slide, please. As we said earlier, the South Placer Fire District is funded by property taxes. I won't even read through this because there's no need to. I think everybody understands that. The Division 2 special tax that was enacted in 1981 did not include a provision for allowing for the growth of the parcel tax as inflation and costs increased. And in 2022, as we know, the effort to provide such a provision was defeated by voters, resulting in the closure of Station 19 and reallocation of personnel from Station 15 to 16. And an overall reduction of full-time equivalent positions. Also, the removal of a truck company from service. Chief, anything you want to share there?
No, I have nothing to add on this one.
All right, thank you, Chief. Next slide, please. So in the short term, we made several recommendations. First and foremost was to complete a 3 to 5 year strategic plan. A strategic plan for a fire service agency is incredibly important to focus energies and efforts on those things that are most relevant for the organization to maintain and sustain their service to the community. This is an important document and really important to an organization really at any point in their life cycle, but certainly one undergoing a significant amount of change. Recommendation was also made to review incident data annually. Again, this is about keeping pace with what's actually happening on the street and verifying that with real actionable information and data. Recommendation to petition the EMS agency to expand the district's ALS ambulance coverage to the town of Loomis. Also, recommendation was to hire an additional inspector for the Fire Prevention Division. Seek voter approval for an increase to the rate of the benefit assessment for Division 2 parcels and provide for an automatic cost of living or COLA increase for future years. And increase staffing levels by 2 additional firefighters per shift for a total of 6 personnel. Anything, Chief?
Yeah, real quick. Strategic plan will begin in August. We just put out our second annual report. We're working on the EMS portion. The prevention division, we're waiting to see what that looks like. We recently had FM3 do a community survey to see what the support is for a benefit assessment or special tax. And we have an AFG grant in with the federal government to see if we can add 2 more additional firefighters on their dime to at least get to a service level that we can then work through some of these other processes to see if we can put funding behind it.
Thank you, sir. Next slide, please.
Hold on one second, Ken.
Okay, sorry.
Expanding the EMS service to Loomis, will that be essentially a self-funding expansion?
We believe so. There's some uncertainty because we don't have insight into what the private company is doing in terms of number of calls, number of transports, payer mix, those kinds of things. But we are fairly confident, 95%, that that should fund itself.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next slide, please. Thank you. What was it? Really, the slides really didn't translate well here. As a midterm strategy, we recommend the reopening and staffing of Station 19. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, Chief, did you have anything on the reopening of Station 19?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. We recommend the implementation of automatic vehicle location on all devices, on all vehicles, excuse me. For the board, this is the automatic vehicle location devices give us the ability to dispatch resources based upon their location rather than based upon the station with which they're assigned. It basically gives us the opportunity and the ability to dispatch the closest resource to an incident rather than one that has responsibility for a given area. Next is to adopt performance objectives for the organization. We also recommend adding a registered nurse or nurse educator to oversee the continuous quality improvement program for the EMS system. We recommend developing a community risk reduction plan and establish a clear program, set of program outcome goals. Also an update to the community wildfire protection plan, including all areas within the South Placer Fire Protection District response area. Chief, anything?
Sure. So AVL is up 80% and should be done by the end of August, 100%. Performance objectives we'll be talking about in approximately 90 minutes at our meeting this evening. The nurse is expensive. I don't know if that fits into the budget, but it's a great recommendation. And if we had a model agency, that would be fantastic. Community risk reduction plan we're working on, and the community wildfire protection plan will be working with the county during their hazardous mitigation plan process and have that a collaborative effort between us and the county.
All right, thank you, Chief. And I think I can help you out with the model agency. On midterm strategies, again, reopening, this is for Station 15. Chief, anything on Station 15?
No.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Long-term recommendation, we consider developing an RFP to remodel and upgrade the training center to really to be more adequately sized. We find this is common among fire service agencies. Training facilities are very difficult, expensive. They take up a lot of space. Oftentimes agencies are working with a training facility very long in the tooth and not necessarily meeting their needs. So a recommendation is to replace that. Then assess the need for additional prevention staffing to enhance community safety. Anything there, Chief?
As these are both long-term strategies, we're focusing on the short and mid and investing in our personnel and our response to the community, so we haven't even looked into either of these yet.
Thank you, sir. Next slide, please. And then finally, site and construct and staff Station 21. Chief Durr and I have had a number of conversations about this area. This is an underserved area, pretty much in the middle of the district. Obviously, this needs some coverage. The recommendation is to site and construct a station. Chief, I know that you have some particular thoughts on this if you'd like to share.
Yeah, obviously a long-term plan to get a response that's reasonable and what the district deserves. It will take a lot of effort and time, and we would love to be there. It's just, it'll be a while.
Thank you, sir. And last slide, please. And that takes us to questions. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth. Questions?
I did have a question. I wonder if the consultant could go over the background for the growth projections within the districts. I'm interested in what's the resources, what resources did you use for those? And is there a geography within the districts as to where that growth is going to be? Thank you.
I really wish I could go into greater depth on that. Unfortunately, the subject matter expert who handles our community risk and analysis wasn't available. But I'm happy to provide the information to you to answer your question, to get you all the information you're looking for if you'd like. Be more than happy to follow up.
Yes, she's nodding. So we'd
Thank you.
like to have that.
Thank you.
Jim, is your light on?
Yeah, thank you. I've been on the Sierra Sacramento Valley EMS Agency Board, and now we're getting ready to go out for the AMR contract. We started negotiations early on, and so the contract will probably be renewed by the end of 2026. Has AMR reached out to you, or have you reached out to AMR or SSV about the issue with the AMR responding to Loomis?
They did. We did. So when I first got here, we went and sat down with SSV, and they said we should go talk to AMR. So we went and talked to AMR. You'll find this confusing, but they told us to go talk to SSV.
They told
So-
you what? They weren't very receptive, is that what you guys?
They were. And some of the, yes. And so some of the confusion comes into where is the authority in providing ambulance service to our community,
Yeah.
right? And when you look at the LAFCO documents in 2017, there's it, and maybe Michelle can speak better to it.
Right, so we are reviewing that. We've had discussions with our legal counsel as well as other legal counsels who are subject matter experts, because what we're hoping to do as part of the sphere update and all the annexations is request a clarification from the commission on what exactly they meant to do and didn't mean to do as part of that project. So that will be coming. We're hoping that you get the legal opinion soon.
Okay, all right. I got a couple other historical perspective. When the town of Loomis was incorporated in 1984, our county executive officer also served as a county LAFCO officer. And interestingly, he lived in the Tahoe Basin. And even more interestingly, his property wasn't incorporated into the town. And so that's why I don't think it was ever addressed about fire service in Loomis, because they had, South Placer had part of it, Penryn had part of it, and there was another district, I think it was 3 districts. And that's why you see those crazy lines there that should have been addressed back in 1984. And then you got a $70 a month assessment. And I served on a fire district board for 16 years. And we passed one for $48. And we didn't put a COLA on it. It's either did South Placer. And the reason, that was before Prop 218. And so the board on 3-2 decision could place those parcel taxes on the rolls. But there was so much backfire. A lot of people, why do you waste, it's waste, fraud, and abuse, same old story. And so board members were afraid to put a COLA on there. And then that's why you see it. Well, if there had been a COLA on there, that would help immensely. There was another fire district, local fire district, that did have a COLA on theirs, but they never took action to raise it. So it's just a little background from my perspective.
Yeah, for reference, that $70 in 1981-ish covered, it brought in about $280,000, which covered all of our wages This year, it's going to bring in about 770,000, and our wages are 5.8 million. So we see them running away from each other.
Thank you. Dan?
In your, it was either mid or long range plan, you talk about training facility. Have you had discussions with Sierra and the people putting together the regional training facility?
Yeah, we've been involved in those conversations, and that's definitely an option and opportunity for us in the future, and we're very excited about what's going on out there. I believe AP Triton's referencing some more local homegrown stuff, cleaning up some of our, we're still in some portable buildings from 1980 that are serving as our training facility. And so there's the local South Placer training, and then the regional stuff that we're very excited about.
And I have one general question, because I don't know, is what district is going to be responsible, has nothing, maybe nothing to do with you, for Placer 1 and the commercial area? Does anybody know?
That'll be Placer County Fire.
It's just Cal Fire.
Placer,
Yeah.
Placer County.
Placer County.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
I have
Shanti,
one.
yes.
This is just my own ignorance, but going back to your, the figure on or the table that was talking about revenues and expenditures and how it showed it out in the red, but then you said that's not what it's showing now. Can you explain to me, the difference between what it's showing now and what was shown on the slide?
Sure. So they took from, I have to look back at the years, but 22 back to 19, I believe is what those numbers show. And we were consistently running into the negative. Like I said, off the top of my head, negative $1.5 million, positive a few $100,000, and then negative 600 and negative 90. And so when you start marching those out for their projections, if you were to take that out from 24 to 29, it kept showing the negative. In 22, closed the station, reduced 6 full-time positions, made some cuts and spending constraints, and did everything we could to make sure our budget was tight. It was fairly loose before I got there in 2021. And by putting all that together, we've been able to rectify the spend problem to the best that we can.
Okay.
Some, I would say, at the detriment to service to the community by closing a station, but it's a necessity, right? We can't run the district so far into the negative that we fold up shop and call it quits. And
Right.
so the board, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, the board made some very tough decisions. We were able to stabilize the budget and even get to a place where I think we're doing well. We just finished a fiscal year, so I'll wait to see what that looks like, but I think we're trending in the right direction.
Okay, great. And so I'm assuming at some point there will be an updated table that will show the current numbers.
Yes.
Okay. All right, that was it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes. Josh?
I have a question. Electric vehicle mandates. I'm just wondering, the study didn't address it. I'm just wondering, is the fire service exempt from it? Or it seems like if there is going to be, if they support vehicles, not the engines or anything, have to be support electric vehicles, and stations have to be upgraded to support the electric vehicles of the employees, et cetera. And I think that I'm just wondering, it should have been addressed in the study or brought up in either in a short-term or mid-term strategy. I think that's a large impact that will have beyond just a service impact. It's a whole infrastructure improvement that's non-traditional.
Sure. I believe our heavy apparatus are exempt. I also believe, but I'm not certain, I'll check on it, that our light duty stuff is as well in public safety.
Cool.
But it's a great question.
Yeah, it should just at least address that it is exempt or something, because I could see that coming up as a question somewhere. Thank you.
Other questions, commissioners? I had one on the on page 223 of the report, or page 235 of our packet, whichever one, just to be confusing, is where you really outline that discrepancy between the automatic aid in the town of Loomis versus AMR. I'm sorry that I don't understand. When you are responding and AMR is not responding, what does that mean? To a
So,
patient, to a member of the public?
yeah, so let's say there's a call in Lincoln or Penryn or someplace that we don't service, that AMR doesn't have an ambulance available. They'll call us and have our ambulance go into the town of Lincoln, Gold Run, Forest Hill, whoever. Forest Hill's maybe a bad example because they have their own ambulance, but we'll go into their area and service their
Okay.
area as mutual aid. And in return, when we're running short an ambulance, they'll send one into ours.
Okay,
Now, you can see from the discrepancy, it's about a 10 to 12 to 1 ratio.
right. Just wanted to make sure I was really clear. And then, when you were answering Supervisor Landon's question regarding balancing your budget, it does come at reduced response times.
And reduced service levels.
Right, And-
Actually, increased response times, reduced service levels.
right.
Yes,
And that's clear to the community as you prepare and your polling and everything.
absolutely.
That's what's at stake,
Yes,
when minutes mean lives, right?
absolutely.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Are there any, there's,
Chair.
yes, go ahead.
Chief, if you were to take over Loomis with from AMR, where would you staff?
We'd put an ambulance at Station 18,
In where?
at Station 18 in Loomis.
Oh, okay, all right. Good answer.
Great. I'm not seeing other comments here. Is there any members of the public that would like to address this issue? I'm not seeing anyone here. They're very interested parties, but nobody's wanting to speak. Anyone online? Okay.
Well, I wanted to thank Chief Dewar. I'm sorry I didn't introduce you sooner, but or the first term, but Chief Dewar is actually on vacation, and he came here just for this presentation. And they do have a board meeting in about 30.
An hour.
An hour, okay. And so, but thank you to you, and also to. Oh, absolutely, thank you.
Yes, please do.
A couple of things I wanted to hit on was, one is the AVA rates was one of the biggest hurdles when we were trying to go for the assessment, that inequity between the two divisions within our
Right.
district, that we'd like to just make into one division, South Placer Fire District, not two. The other thing is when we were talking about, and the question came up a lot about the ambulance service and that the 201 rights, which gives the ambulance service to the district if we were to do that in Loomis. And it's kind of a twofold thing. It puts an ambulance there as opposed to a private ambulance, which is doing their situational posting throughout the county to respond in. So they may be coming from Colfax to that call in Loomis or something along those lines. But it also puts 2 additional firefighters there. And the slide wasn't in this one, but we do have another slide in the master plan that deals with firefighting forces getting on scene in a certain amount of time. And the town of Loomis is one of our biggest gaps for South Placer to respond into in that time frame. And those 2 additional firefighters in there increases the number of firefighters getting on scene in a certain amount of time, which has a direct effect on that firefighting force. So those are the 2 biggest hurdles that we have right now to get additional funding within the district. Is one, getting those 201 rights, which helps our staffing levels, and then also fixing this discrepancy between the 2 divisions within the same district. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to thank the board again for your time.
Well, thanks for coming in on vacation.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, with that, there's no action to be taken, so we will move on to our business items today. Item 6 on our agenda. Item 6A is an adjustment to increase LAFCO's operating budget for 23-24. Michelle?
Thank you, Chair. I don't have anything to add to the staff report, but I'm just going to read the staff recommendation into the record so we can move along. The executive officer recommends that the commission adopt LAFCO resolution number 24-05, which is in your packet, to appropriate $102,239 from its unassigned fund balance and transfer it to professional and special services, general. This is the spend code 52360, thus increasing the commission's operating budget for fiscal year 2023 to 2024, which is last fiscal year, to $1,085,111, up from $982,872. So as the staff report noted, this is from the unassigned fund balance. It is not new money that we're billing to the cities and the county and the special districts. It's left over from other studies that came in underfunded or under budget.
Thank you. Are there commissioner questions? Not seeing any. Any public comment on this item? Not seeing any in the room or online. So with that, I'd entertain a motion.
First moves approval.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Two of them.
Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes. Then we'll move on to item 6B on our agenda, and that is our executive officer's report.
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, I attended the Placer County Board of Supervisors meeting yesterday, in which they approved the tax transfer agreement between Placer County and El Dorado County for the North Tahoe and Meeks Bay reorganization. I am hoping to have that item before you. We're requesting, I believe Chief Lane is on the line, but we are requesting that we reschedule our August 14th meeting to August 21st, and that's because of the election timeline that is pushing that a little bit. The problem with having the item at our September meeting is we would like to have the operation consolidated by January 1st, 2025, so it makes it very tight. And then the budget consolidation as of July 1st fiscal year. So we are operating under a very tight deadline, which is why we're requesting the August meeting be moved up. That way we don't have to have this item at our September meeting. And so I don't have any other new updates from my staff report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have just a quick question because I don't know my schedule. Did you already run this date by my staff?
Yes,
Okay.
I did.
Thank you. I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, so that's okay if I don't know what I'm doing in August. Great.
I did. I think I had, I ran it individually with the commissioners, and we have a quorum.
Okay. Great. Are there questions or comments? Yes.
No,
On the executive director's report. You didn't have anything else?
is that the end of the executive director's report?
That's the only thing that's new, that's part of the EO report. But if there's other items that's in the report, I'm happy to go over them with you. This is just what's new information.
Okay.
Are you going to cover the Village 5 waiver, the Village 5 annexation request in the report?
I can do that now. That's page 285, the first page of the executive officer's report. So I have nothing new to report with that project. I'll be requesting that the commission consider waiving the 1-year requirement at the now August 21st agenda as opposed to August 14th.
And one of, I'm sorry, I didn't read page 2, whatever you said.
85,
Here, I'll give it.
right here.
I'm not used to your,
There you go.
oh, okay. The city requested, early part of, first of all, the application went in the end of May, the 1st of June. The city requested a waiver be provided to get around what you said was going to be the 1-year requirement. Early in June, you asked for a resolution from the council. They provided that with the expectation that it would be on this June meeting. I've done some research, had, in fact, we've employed Michael Colin Tano, Highsmith and Watney, who pretty significant LAFCO attorneys. You have told me verbally, and I think in writing, that you wanted a public hearing for the waiver. You thought it required it. I can't find any requirement for that.
No, I'm sorry, I did not, I didn't say it was a requirement. I said it was recommended because staff is recommending it, and the reason why is that the project was terminated by the voters, and I felt that we needed to provide notice to the voters because the commission did not terminate the project, the voters did.
If it was terminated by the voters and not the commission, there is no 1-year wait. The only time you have a 1-year wait is when the commission declines, as far as what I know, when the commission turns down the application, the applicant opponents have to wait a year. Okay? If the commission didn't, and it didn't do it sitting as a commission, it did it sitting as another body. So you don't need a waiver. Or if we need a waiver, we need to have that discussion and make the decision.
So I'm gonna have,
We're stretching this out to the point where it's gonna have harm on the community.
so I'm just going to have Michael address the legal aspect of it. Michael Walker, the LAFCO's legal counsel, addressed the legal part. He's online. Thank you.
Yes, Chair, can you hear me? Chair, are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Unfortunately, I'm not able to turn my video on, so that's the reason you'll just see my name there rather than the video. There is a section in LAFCO law that provides a 1-year waiting period when the voters reject a proposal, an annexation that has been approved by the commission. So that the statement by the commissioner just now is not incorrect in that regard. So to the extent a new application is filed that involves the same or substantially the same territory as the proposal that was rejected by the voters, there must be a 1-year waiting period before LAFCO can accept the new application for filing.
Okay. If that, I'll buy that. The application is substantially different. First of all, it includes none of the voters, or very few of the voters that voted against it. Secondly, it's a 50% reduction in the acreage, but it maintains the really significant part with enough rooftops and commercial to get the city's tax flow to the point, you know, the fire department talking about having to go to 2 people on a truck, 2 people in a station for some period of time. Lincoln had to do that for 10 years. And it did. This is a chance to change that. So it's imperative from a time standpoint to do as soon as possible. So all I'm asking for is a action item to either approve or disapprove the 1-year waiver. And if the waiver is approved because it's substantially different, or because it's of significant importance to the community, which are the 2 reasons that it can be waived, then I want to see the application started through the process.
Right, that is,
So, yeah, so we had a conversation, Dan called me yesterday and explained that the city really would like to have this determination, and that they've met with the public numerous times, had meetings. So I have a proposal to make if the rest of the commission is interested in trying to help expedite this. And that is if next Wednesday at our ahead of our strategic planning session, that we take this item up here in this room at 8 a.m. and then go over to the Holiday Inn for our strategic planning session. I don't feel personally that holding a public meeting at the Holiday Inn is, even though the public can join us there and it's ADA accessible, we don't have the capabilities of streaming. So that's one way to help expedite for the city, for the commission to consider this waiver or not.
That's all right.
We don't know what the public view will be, but I am trusting our colleague that the public has been hearing this and hasn't objected, and so I'd like to honor that, but that's my position. I wanted to hear what the other commissioners felt.
So to clarify.
Chair Gustafson?
Yes.
Chair Gustafson, before, I just wanted to correct something just so everyone's on the same page. You said the meeting next Wednesday. I believe the
It's next
meeting's
Tuesday.
next Tuesday.
I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. We usually meet on Wednesdays, so. See, I told you I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, so. So next Tuesday, the 16th of July. And if we wanted to try to honor the request of the city, we could do that at an earlier time here in these chambers and then move to our strategic planning session.
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it, but I just have a quick question now. So we're asking to meet to talk about a waiver, and then we'd set up a date to take on the annexation, right? The application. So, and from what I'm understanding is the waiver, we just need to have the applicant needs to submit something that says, explain like how the project is different, considerably different, right? And meet that requirement, and then we could hear on the waiver, right? So that means in order to meet the 72 public hearing, that has to be in like tomorrow, right? If that's ready to go.
Right,
May I address
it
that?
would be, so,
You'd be pushing it tight, right? For
it would be
72 hours.
very tight, you know.
May
I'll
I
do my
address this,
best.
Michelle?
Yes, please, Michael, thank you.
Okay. It would be considered a special meeting. So in terms of the actual Brown Act notice requirement, it would be 24 hours as opposed to 72 hours. Obviously, materials can be submitted at any point prior to the meeting. So you're right, though, that staff, would have, be a little bit under the gun to prepare. So I think in terms of the Brown Act, I wanted to clarify it would be 24 hours. And just to clarify what I think the issues would be, is the section at play applies when an application, as I said a moment ago, involves the same or substantially the same territory. So the focus is on the territory. If your commission, as a threshold matter says this application, this proposed application does not involve substantially the same territory, then there would be no need for a waiver because the 1-year waiting period would not apply. If your commission determined that the proposed application did involve substantially the same territory, then you would move to the question as whether it would be detrimental to the public to wait for the remainder of the 1-year period, which I believe is November, before the commission accepts the new application.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Others?
So, yeah, sorry, I was gonna talk, or
yes.
ask Megan to talk about the logistics because, as our clerk, for both of these meetings, so I just want to make sure we can do all this.
Yeah, I mean, if everyone is available and we can start the meeting, we'll start here at 8 o'clock. We'll have the doors unlocked by 7:30. That way, if people want to come early, we'll have everything set up. We'll start right at 8 o'clock. We will be under a little bit of a time crunch because we do need to be over at the Holiday Inn for the strategic planning session, which has already been set, noticed at 9. So ideally, if we could, it sounds like this shouldn't take too long. And if we could, maybe commit to, if there is a large outpouring of public comment, that maybe we look at a continuation if necessary, so that we don't impact your strategic planning and, that you guys are right at that end on, so.
Jim?
To Michelle, I know you're there in that office by yourself. Do you have enough time to do everything that it needs to bring this up on next week?
No, I not to unload, because I don't want to complain. I love my job. It's fun. So I don't want to sit here and complain. But I'm working on not just the North Bay, Meeks Bay, again, crunch time, because we are trying to make that January 1st deadline. We've been working on this project the entire time I've been here. I'm also working with the Eastern Fire Chiefs, putting an RFP together for ambulance service and fire services. And they're on the line because I'm in conversations with them daily.
Yeah.
And that is important. I mean, we have a fire going on. So to answer your question, no, I don't have time. But if you tell me to be there, I will be there.
And I don't know what the rush is for the town of.
I'm not opposed to us doing a special meeting for this, but I do want to just speak up that I will not be available on the 16th in person, unfortunately. I do have other obligations, and I feel like this is an extremely important topic. So, if we would be open to maybe pushing it out an extra week, maybe to give Michelle just a little bit more time. I don't know if that's a fair compromise, but at least then I'd be able to commit to being present for this. So.
Yeah.
Is your alternate available?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So we're short on the city.
Right.
Yeah. I apologize. I definitely would have tried to see what I could do on this one, but unfortunately the 16th is not a day that I have flexibility on.
Well, given, and I'm happy to look at other dates, I just want to share that the workload, not only on Michelle, but on all of us, if we have a consolidation hearing for North Tahoe and Meeks Bay on August 21st, and this discussion, I'm concerned that maybe we need a special meeting anyway. So I'm open to a different date. I just was looking for the first date. We thought we had a quorum for strategic planning, and we could add to that, so, yeah. So-
I just didn't think.
And remember,
How difficult.
it's only whether we waive it or not, or do we need to waive it?
Yeah, and as long as there is an acceptable quorum with our bylaws, I don't know if you have to have a city representative present. So as long as there's a quorum, I mean, that's fine. I'm just stating I am unavailable and my alternate is unavailable.
Commissioner, if I could just clarify, we would have one city representative available. I do want to clarify that.
I think I could make
Also, just for the record, the pushing it 1 week to July 23rd would not work, as we have a board meeting that day. So I would need the commissioners in that.
Well, we'd have to look at it, maybe going
We
to a
could
You might
look
just
Wednesday.
have to
any
have a
other
minimum
days.
quorum. You might just need to have a minimum quorum.
But, you know, how much more work does staff need to do to prepare for this? Because we've had quite a few dialogues today. It seemed like you're pretty well prepared, but maybe not, so.
So, I mean, right, it's, I don't think, it's not black and white, not, LAFCO never is, we operate in the gray. So it's not a simple, there's, not to get into the analysis that I'll be providing, to you at some point, it's not black and white. So there is gray, which is why your staff is coming to you when there is gray. If it was black and white, I could just, right, you know, follow policy, but we're in the gray.
I'll look for the direction of the rest of the commission on your feelings.
Could it be after?
Could we provide direction to staff that we'll schedule a special meeting at the earliest possible opportunity and we'll entertain the Tuesday? And then that way we can at least
After
give.
the meeting on Tuesday, after the strategic planning on Tuesday? No? Because
It's a staff issue.
I'm just hoping we can provide staff some direction with just enough flexibility to where if we can't nail down something right this second, we're not saying there won't be a special meeting. So if we can at least, you know, give Michelle direction to schedule a special meeting at the earliest opportunity, then if it turns out that we just have a minimum quorum and we really do have to throw it together for Tuesday, then so be it. But if that just isn't going to work, then perhaps we can get something on the schedule at some point for either the following week or the one thereafter. But trying to be flexible here because I know there's a lot to consider. We're on the spot.
Dan, I'll look to you. You asked for it next week, so I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
Can we have a quorum for the meeting next week? That's really the question, right?
And whether
And
staff
these-
has
Trying to
adequate
review
time to
the
prepare.
applicant
And-
with the question.
Right, and I think the staff has their position and backup well in hand.
Yes, Nita. Yeah. Would anyone from the public like to help us solve this?
So the staff, the city staff does have a well-prepared presentation for this body to seek your direction on waiving the 1-year requirement. We have provided Michelle numerous documents on why we believe that it is appropriate to waive that requirement, as well as information to the public that are concerned with the initial application as well as the secondary application. One of the things we are contesting is that it is significantly different, although Michael Walker may disagree with that. The other thing we're contesting is that there is a public harm by waiving the application for the year. So we are merely asking for this body to consider that waiver in the most expedient manner possible. And so we are requesting that this administrative decision be brought before this board and this body as soon as reasonably possible. We understand that it is not required a public hearing. However, we don't feel that it is necessary for a public hearing, as we have been in constant contact with the members of the public who are interested in this annexation and who voted yes and no in the previous annexation application.
Thank you. Josh, did you have a?
Okay, so I just have a question. Is the application submitted? Is it for the waiver submitted? Or it just hasn't been reviewed?
So the application packet has been submitted. The city did submit findings related to why it was important that this body consider the annexation. What they did not submit as part of those findings is why now? Why July 10th and not November 8th? Why is it urgent? So yes, they did submit findings, but what I had suggested, and it wasn't a requirement, but we are a quasi-legislative body, unlike cities. We make determinations. Cities make findings. So I had asked the cities, because as part of their application, they did not have any findings. So why now? They said that they would go to city council. They did that, but they did not follow request, right? It wasn't a definite ask, but it would be helpful for staff as well as the commission to have findings, which are reasons, so that you can do your job and make determinations.
So that's the only part that's missing, or?
With respect, we did adopt a resolution to
Okay.
provide the findings of why now.
All right, oh, thank you.
While Michelle did
I
not.
just asked for it.
Does not feel that
Thank you.
those findings are sufficient. The city contends that we did meet that.
So it's a discretionary, and this is where there's a discussion between our staff and the city and.
Correct. And
as
I
the
don't wish
applicant.
to start a debate back and forth
Right.
between Michelle and the city at this moment. I don't believe that that would be productive for this body. I would merely say, we'll agree to disagree on her comment that we didn't provide that information.
I think where we stand right now is that we're starting to get really deep into an action item
Yes.
that is not on today's agenda.
No, absolutely. The question
And I
is.
think we just need to provide some direction to staff that it sounds like we need a special meeting. We need it as soon as possible. We need that opportunity for the paperwork to enter our hands, to review it, so we can provide that determination. I'm supportive of us having a special meeting at the earliest opportunity, whether or not I'm available. So that would be my recommendation if we wanted to provide direction to staff.
So is that a motion, presuming that you would include the date of next Tuesday?
Mhm.
All right, I will second that motion.
Okay, are we clear on the motion?
I can't support that. That puts a burden on our staff. And there's only one person working. And I don't know what the rush is for the town of Lincoln to get this, push this through until we have more time to understand what the process is.
Thank you. Are there other members of the public that would like to speak? I see a handout here. I know this is a little bit, we do have a motion and a second.
It's on the table.
Yeah, and not to dive too deep, and Brian Cooley with Richland Communities, we represent one of the larger landowners in the annexation boundary. There's a suggestion in the air that this is something that's came about recently in the last couple months. It was asked earlier, the application has been submitted to LAFCO staff on June 10th. But before that, the city as the applicant, ourselves as the significant landowners, we've had discussions with LAFCO staff going back to December of last year and January of this year on the revised boundary with current and past LAFCO staff. So I guess my point is, over the issue of a waiver or substantially different property or substantially the same property, we have been talking to LAFCO staff for over 6 months, 7 months on this. So there's been ample time to prepare some information to present to you whether you want to accept a waiver or not. The other thing I want to point
I'm
out
going
is,
to call for a point of order.
It
We've
is
already got
there-
a motion on the table. Unfortunately, we are at an extreme crunch time. We've already passed the period for public comment. I do apologize.
I've said what I have to say.
We are way too
I
far into
appreciate
the
it. I
subject matter.
appreciate the clarification, and I was out of order in letting you come up, so I apologize. It was my mistake. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
And I'm open to entertaining a different date if that's what's needed by staff, if it's absolutely necessary. I don't want to be overly restrictive here, but I'd like to have us provide some kind of direction to Michelle, because I think we're belaboring it.
Okay, so can I just clarify, so your motion is to, if the deadline can be met, to
Yes.
meet at 8 AM on Tuesday, then we will do that.
Yes.
And if that won't work because we don't have a quorum, or because for some extenuating circumstances
Yes.
that can't be met, then we schedule a special meeting as soon as possible.
Correct.
Is that what-
That
okay.
is exactly what I am trying to communicate. Thank you, Shanti.
And my second.
Okay, got it. So are you doing a roll call vote on this, or is that, okay?
Yes.
Are we still, just clarification on the, so we're still preferring the 21st? The 16th, the 19th in the morning. or 16th.
We're not ruling it out. We're gonna see if it's doable. If it's not doable, we're still gonna expedite getting this special meeting onto the
But
schedule.
what's the determination that it's not doable?
Whether there's an extenuating circumstance with a quorum, whether there is a workload contingency that will not allow it to be met.
We're down to one staff member, won't we?
That's what I'm saying. It's perfectly reasonable
Okay.
if staff wants to come back and say we can meet following Monday, then that's a perfectly acceptable reason to meet.
Thank you. Because that's just two projects, I didn't want to sit here and give you a long list of all the things. There's other agencies. We're working with Rockland on the city annexation. There's service review, there's sphere and annexation. So we have live projects that have fiscal, financial implications. Cities, special districts, up and down the county. So while I don't want to sit here and complain about my workload, that's just the reality.
So do we want to vote on this? And if it fails, then go to a new
Let's
motion?
go vote.
Yes, let's
I'll
vote.
vote.
Megan, please call the roll.
Commissioner Alpine,
No.
Commissioner Burris,
Yes.
Commissioner Carlskip,
Yes.
Commissioner Landon,
Yes.
Commissioner Rohan.
Yes.
We don't have an alternate on special districts.
Oh, it's okay. We have, it's okay.
Okay. And then Chair Gustafson.
Yes.
Did you forget someone?
Yes.
No,
I-
we would have a quorum.
I can't take the vote because I have the two primaries. I apologize.
So as it stands, it's 5 out of the 7, 1 being absent, and 1 being no.
Okay.
I can math sometimes.
Okay.
Well, that was the longest executive officer report in the history.
You haven't been on the air board.
So our next meeting, our regular meeting, I am so sorry. Let me go back because I am so sorry. The staff recommendation or the request, and I don't know if Chief Layton wants to jump on board, but I did request that we move our August 14th regular meeting to Wednesday, the 21st. I don't know if I need that action, since we already closed that item. Michael, am I okay with?
Yes, the commission can still consider that.
Okay, I will move that we move the August 14th meeting to the August 21st.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention?
Okay, thank you. I apologize for that.
No problem.
Okay, so our next regular meeting is the 21st. I was hoping you would say yes. And on that agenda item, we have the North Tahoe Meeks Bay. I think Chief Lane and I met the first week I started here at Placer LAFCO, and so this is 3 years in the making for me. For Chief Layton, it's been much longer. So that will be there for your consideration. I had originally, as I stated earlier, planned for the request for the waiver to be on that item. And then the other thing on there, which was a little bit talked about in the staff report, but Rincon Consultants to provide on-call staffing. Other possible items, I'm hoping that we have the draft fire study for the Western Fire Protection District, and then the Rockland Service Review. There was a slight hiccup in that their staff needed a little bit more time, but I believe their city manager is back, and so I'll work with her to get that clarified so we can get that on the agenda sooner than later because we have an annexation to consider. That I believe they've already started with development, so we need to get a move on. Okay, so that concludes. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. And so with that, we are going to go into closed session now. And we
If I may,
are-
Chair, there's one public item that you need to address first about the attendance of the alternate commissioners in the closed session.
Yes, I'm sorry, I was just about to read that, Michael, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So we will determine whether we want our alternate commissioners to participate in the closed session. My recommendation would be that they do. They're very valued members of our board, so
Agreed.
if that's agreed.
Yep.
Do we need to have a vote on that, Michael?
Yes, it would be appropriate to have a vote, a motion and a vote.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes, so they'll join us in closed session, and we'll be back in public after the end of closed session.
Thank you, Megan.
Items over to you, Jenny.
That really makes sense for all committees.
It just jammed up the whole workshop. They've got to consolidate all the workshop notes this week.